The Democratic base got evidence that the Democratic leadership will respond to their collective sort of apocalyptic rage of the Trump administration and actually fight in a really, this is the longest shutdown in history. This is a fight. And even more so, since every single member of the United States Senate knew that this is how it was going to end, it was a fight driven entirely by the need of Democrats to sort of answer to their base.
Okay, what about for ordinary people who's not part of the Democratic base? What did we collectively get out of this? Or at least what did we learn?
Yes, well, we got an enormous amount of disruption in government services, and a lot of that stuff, I always remind people, is you don't know about the government. The government is like an airbag, right? It's you really, really need it when you need it, and all other times it's invisible to you. My father worked for the Department of Energy, and he did something, that wasn't at all important. He managed nuclear waste. So if that goes wrong, that's a big problem, but you'll never hear about him, and it goes right, and this makes it much harder. But within all that context, I think Democrats are also sort of learning that they manipulated the politics of this. I would say is not terribly well, but the Republicans sort of played the game on a board where it was essentially impossible for them to win. There was no set of moves on the part of Republicans and no set of moves on the part of Democrats that would end with anything other than a political defeat for Republicans.
Well, how do you figure that? Because I think I don't know anything about this stuff, and quite frankly, I tried not to pay too much attention to it.
Because it'll enrage you if you think about it too much.
Plus, it's basketball season. I got the Knicks, I got Duke, I got important stuff. Are there winners and losers? Because I think the narrative is the Democrats caved and the Republicans didn't give away anything.
So in policy terms, that is exactly what happened.
Okay.
But politics and policy are sadly deeply disjoint in modern American politics, and politics is a zero-sum game right now. Two parties, so one of them has to win. And so what did we see? Well, Republicans structured the bill and all sorts of things where Obamacare premiums were going to shoot up, and it would be their responsibility. And Democrats were able to fight this on the grounds of we're trying to save you from that.
Okay.
The political damage of that, as people are having to pay these sort of astronomical increase, they're going to be people where most of their take-home pay is going to health insurance, right? And this is actually disproportionately concentrated in red states. So this is a big political problem for Republicans. And the one thing the Democrats got out of this is they forced Republican senators to actually go on the record saying we're not going to help solve this problem. That's the first one.
Okay.
The second is the Trump administration, as is its wont, at least the second time around, kind of acted in a way that, whatever their policy preferences are, the rhetoric and the way it appeared was kind of like mustache-twirlingly evil in ways that don't make a lot of political sense, right? So 42 million Americans depend upon SNAP funding for food, right? And it is perfectly possible for the Trump administration to pay out from emergency funds to do this. And their argument was, well, this isn't a real emergency, but of course they've been claiming emergencies left and right all the time, so that doesn't make sense. So courts go and say you have to pay this out, and they appeal, right? They actually go to the Supreme Court saying we don't want to pay this out. So you are litigating to the wall to stop from feeding 42 million Americans?
The optics are not good.
This is awful optics.
But I would argue the MAGA voter would still go in tomorrow and vote for President Trump. That's how strong his grip is on his base. They probably made the decision. It really isn't a political risk to us.
So I think that's right. So there's no question that the hardcore MAGA voter is going to hold on. That we have never seen anything like this in American politics. So totally clear on that. But two things. One is, one of the ironies of American politics is many people who depend on government support do not somehow believe that they do. Right? There's this legendary sign, which is a real sign. Keep the government's hands off my Medicare, which is right. Yeah. But I had a friend who grew up on a farm, and who would tell me, she grew up on a corn farm, and she'd tell me we never got any support from the government. I looked up her dad on the government database and found out that he got more from the government every year than my parents made in income. Right. So there's just this thing. So that's part of it. So one is the SNAP funding that comes in. People feel that, right? Like they feel it. But the second, of course, is elections are not won by the MAGA base. It's just not big enough. It's the 15 to 20% of Americans who are not, they're not part of MAGA, but they're open to voting for MAGA candidates. And I think this looked really bad to them.
Okay.
So how does this set us up for the 2026 midterm elections? And I know that that's still a year away, so a lot can happen between now and then. But it kind of at least gives us some starting points in terms of narratives.
Yeah, so the narrative is going to be really clear, right? That these are the 40-day shutdowns only happen under Trump. This sort of thing keeps going. But the problem is we're just going to do this all over again in January. Right. The continuing resolution just runs through the middle of January. There's going to be some votes, and then it'll just happen over again. And it's actually hard for me to see, as the pressure ramps up and we get closer and closer to the midterms, how we don't have another shutdown, because all of the forces will be on Democrats to keep doing this, and Republicans don't seem to have a game plan for how to evade the political
Although
damage.
some of the agencies will be funded through the end of the fiscal year, not everything, right?
Yes, yeah. So we'll figure out some way to patch together the emergencies, and so maybe the maximum, the maximum inconvenience will be there. But again, weirdly, the Trump administration chose to play the shutdown to maximize the inconvenience, not minimize it. So that's a different politics. What might happen, I think, is I'm not sure Chuck Schumer will be the Senate Minority Leader for too much longer.
He'll take the fall.
He may have to.